Boker Tov, Bruchim Habayim. We're continuing on Shulchan Aruch Orach Chaim, Hilchot Shabbat, Siman Resh, Samech Gimal, the halachot of Hadlakat Nerot. Maran writes in Seif Hey, we're up to Seif Hey, Daf Lamed Vav Amud Bet of the regular prince of Mishna Berura. Kshiyadik Yevarech, Baruch Ata Hashem Elokeinu Melech Haolam, Kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu, La'adik Ner Shel Shabbat. We spoke about this before, that when a person says the bracha, it should be, if it's Birkat Mitzvah, Mevarech Aleim over La'asiyatan. You make the bracha before you do the mitzvah, not afterwards. And that's the simple understanding of Maran. Kashiyadik Yevarech, when you're about to do the adlaka, you say the bracha. Now, the bracha you make is La'adik Ner Shel Shabbat, and whether it's a man or a woman, you make the same bracha. Gam beYom Tov tzarich levarech La'adik Ner Shel Yom Tov. Yom Tov also you say bracha and Hadlakat Nerot, and of course it will be Asher Kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu La'adik Ner Shel Yom Tov. Ubeyom HaKippurim, says the Shulchan Aruch, when Yom HaKippurim is not on Shabbat, right? Then you make the bracha Yesh Mishomer Shelo Yevarech, that you don't make the bracha, right? If it's on Shabbat, it's a different story. So it says the Mishna Berura over here. Yesh omrim כשיש חופה בערב שבת ומאחרים בעד אחר שקיעת החמה. If you have a chuppah set up for Erev Shabbat, which they used to do this a lot back in the day because the food, they wanted to save themselves from having to do more than one seudah, so they would set it up together to be with the Seudah of Shabbat. So they would do Erev Shabbat Chuppah, and Leil Shabbat would be the Seudah of Chatuna, F Seudah of the Shabbat as well. And the women do not want to accept Shabbat before the Chuppah, because maybe they will need to do something else afterwards. Therefore, you should light the ner without bracha on chuppah. And then afterwards, after the chuppah, you make the bracha. Again, this is according to the minhag of the Ashkenazim, that they would say the bracha after lighting. You could say it even in Ben Hashmashot. Tamhu Acharonim, the poskim are very surprised on this psak, because the lo shayach bracha b'diluka ve'omedit. When you already have a light that's turned on, lit, you can't make a bracha. Ubifrat de'ata hu zman isur ladlik. Now in Ben Hashmashot you can't even light. So how can you say bracha on something that was lit before? How can you say Hashem commanded us lehadlik? You can't be madlik right now. It's after Shkia. And to tell a goy to be madlik, also it's not going to work, because the shlichut of eno Yehudi, agency, when you make them your agent, your shaliach, on Shabbat you can't do it. And you can say bracha on the agency that he's doing, a goy is doing. So therefore you can't gain the bracha over here with Hadlakat Nerot. So it says, the Mishna Berura, umaski acharim etza acheret. The maskana of the achronim, the poskim, is a different one. Refimash dekay malan, deyechola levarech ulhatnot al kol panim belesorech. We mentioned this last time. Sometimes you can light the ner and make a tonight that I'm not accepting Shabbat. You're going to mikveh. This is another case. So you could do it in such a way that I'm not accepting Shabbat. If I need to do a melacha afterwards, before Shkia, before sundown, I should still be allowed to do that. For the chuppah, she'ena mekabelet Shabbat ba'adlaka, hachinami beinyanenu hevel sorech. This is also considered sorech, and she should say the bracha, she should light, and she should just make a tenai, a condition that she's not accepting the Shabbat. Fine. Says the Mishna Berura, When you say La'adlik Ner Shel Yom Tov, you don't have to say Shehyanu on the candle lighting, but says the Chafetz Chaim, if you have a place that the minhag was that they said Shehyanu on the Zman, yeah, you don't have to stop them. Now this becomes the whole question. Chacham Ovadia famously was very stringent that women should not necessarily say Shehyanu by Hadakat Nerot. Then later on in his life, he retracted partially that psak. He said, well, if you have other mitzvot of the day, then they could say Shehyanu by Hadakat Nerot. Because what was his problem? The problem was, if you say Shehyanu, then when the husband by Kiddush says Shehyanu, you can't answer Amen. Why can't you answer Amen? Because you don't need Shehyanu. And answering Amen will be a hefsek between Borei Geffen and the bracha of Kiddush, and you drinking it. Your mafsik, that one word Amen, because you don't need it, will be a problem. So I said, well, in Sukkot, you don't have that problem, because the Shehyanu that the woman says by Hadakat Nerot is only on the Yom Tov. But Shehyanu that you say in Kiddush is going also on the mitzvah of Arba Minim and Yeshivat Sukkah, and same is with Pesach, the mitzvah. The Shehyanu goes on the mitzvah of matzah and maror and all the things that you have extra. So therefore, later on in his life, he said it's not a big deal. If they say about Rosh Hashanah, for instance, he said there's no other mitzvot necessarily. So they should refrain from saying Shehyanu. Again, others, Rav Moshe Feinstein, Rosh Hashanah Orbach, and others, they are more lenient that if you need to say Shehyanu because that was your minhag, especially many women did have this minhag of say Shehyanu. You could keep the minhag even on Rosh Hashanah, and that war answering Amen, it's not a problem. You could answer Amen, and you could still drink the wine, and that's fine. Again, this is beyond the scope of this talk right now, but as a side pointer, important to mention, Ner Shel Yom Tov, you say the bracha, but again, we spoke about the fact that you don't necessarily have to say Shehyanu. Now, if Chal Yom Tov v'Shabbat, if Shabbat and Yom Tov coincide, then you say Shabbat v'Shel Yom Tov. Shabbat v'Shel Yom Tov. That's the bracha that you would be making in that case. V'ayin likaman.
And also today, this year where it's Yom Kippur and Shabbat, you say
Say it again.
So this year where it's Yom Kippur and Shabbat, you say La'alik Ner Shel Yom Kippur and Shabbat.
Shabbat is always first. Right? Shabbat is whole year, so to speak. So it says, take a look at later on in Chol Yom Kippur in Siman Tafresh Yud. There, the Shulchan Aruch brings the poskim that you need to say bracha on Ner Yom Kippur as well. Af she'en bo achila o shtia, even though you don't have the mitzvah of achila o shtia, there's no eating and drinking, still you will have kiddush hayom, so to speak, with lighting and having a proper mitzvah onik, because again, Ner Shabbat you do, as we mentioned before, it's part and parcel of the mitzvah of onik Shabbat. You want the house to be well lit, you want not to stumble upon things, and you don't want to bang into things and bump into things. So therefore, it's a mitzvah of onik Shabbat. So even though there's no mitzvah of eating and drinking on Yom Kippur, you can't, you're fasting, but the mitzvah of onik still is there, that you should have a well-lit house. Mishum Shalom Bayit. You have the mitzvah of Shalom Bayit, and therefore the minhag has evolved to say bracha on the Hadlakat Nerot of Yom Kippur as well. Now, Kodem HaHadlaka, the Rema writes over here, adds, Yesh Mishomer Shemarachin Kodem HaHadlaka. There are those who say that you make the bracha before Hadlaka, V'yesh Mishomer Shemarech Achar Hadlaka. And there are those who say that you make the bracha after lighting, Uchte Sheyeh over La'asiyatan. You want it to still be over La'asiyato before doing it. So how do you say the bracha after? It's not before if you're doing it after lighting. So says the Rama, what you should do is Lo Ya'aneh Mimena Ad La'achar Bracha. Don't benefit from the light until after the bracha. That's the minhag of the Ashkenazi women that cover their eyes. They want to have hana'ah from the light until after the bracha. Umesimin hayad lifnei haner. They put their hands in front of the candle to cover the light. V'acharat laka umvarachin. After the light, they put their hands to cover the light, and they make the bracha, and then they take their hands off to enjoy the ambiance of the light of Shabbat, and that somehow is supposed to be considered over Lasiatan. Again, obviously that's the minhag of the Ashkenazim, and that's not the minhag of the Sfaradim. Al Pi Maran Shulchan Aruch and the Rambam. Again, some of the communities of the Sfaradim have evolved and have recently we're talking about a long history. They have adopted this minhag of saying the bracha afterwards. Again, Kala Chadasha, Rabbi Shaul, Rabbi Chaim Peretz, many others, even those who are not aligned necessarily 100% with Chacham Obadia, they say that Kala Chadasha, a girl that gets married, should start doing it like Maran Shulchan Aruch, to say the bracha before, even though that her mom did the bracha afterwards. They should say the bracha before, as it should be based on Rambam and the Shulchan Aruch. Again, none of these things are pashut. Rambam, there are those who learn differently. Shulchan Aruch, there are those who learn differently. But the simple understanding of the poskim is that the bracha has to be mentioned beforehand, and says Rabbi Shaul, a Kala Chadasha changes the minhag of her mom and says the bracha beforehand. They all recognize that that's the right minhag to do. Again, if a person has been doing this because of ignorance, they could do Hatarat Nedarim and change the minhag when it does not cause any rift and any uproar in the family. That would be a good thing to switch to Dat Maran. But again,
Rabbi Maran doesn't distinguish between Shabbat and Yom Tov with this?
So Maran does not, because according to him, you say the bracha always beforehand. Now, according to Ashkenazim, that becomes something to talk about. Actually, the wife of the Dirisha, the wife of the Sma, this is brought by her sons, the son of the Dirisha, or the Hakdama, to Shulchan Aruch. In there he mentions that his mother, the wife of the Dirisha, the Rebbetzin of the Dirisha, had two chidushim in Hadlakat Nerot, which we passed in one was that even the Ashkenazim who say Nerot Shabbat before the bracha, by Yom Tov, the reason doesn't apply. The reason that they say the bracha after is because you accept Shabbat by saying the bracha somehow, and how can you light after you said the bracha? It's asur. By Yom Tov, you don't have that problem, because ner miner, you could light. You could use fire on Yom Tov, right? Existing fire. You could light a candle from an existing fire on Yom Tov, no problem. So it says the wife of the Dirisha, on Yom Tov, even the Ashkenazim should be saying the bracha beforehand. Magen Avraham argues with her, but most of the Achronim took the side of the wife of the Dirisha, and that's the minhag of the Ashkenazim as well. She has another chidush also, which is not necessarily relevant right now. Well, maybe it is relevant. Says the wife of the Dirisha, you should also light the Nerot of Yom Tov the same time as Hadlakat Nerot Shabbat, before Shkia. Don't wait for the night. Like many people wait for the night, right? And they do it before Suda, and the next thing you know, you come, it's Kiddush, people are there, you forget. You wake up tomorrow morning, you're like, oh, I forgot to light Nerot Yom Tov. This happens every year. So it says obviously for Yom Tov Sheni is a different story, but so Yom Tov Rishon, you do it before Shkia, 18 minutes before, the same time as candle lighting, and that would be it. So that basically concludes Seif Hey. We're a little bit behind. You have to pick up some steam and some speed. Bezrat Hashem will continue this in the days to come. Chazak u'Baruch.